We need to stop referring to the justice system as the justice system and just call it the legal system, because there is no justice. The legal system was built by violent white men for violent white men to protect violent white men and their violence. Their state-sanctioned violence. Look at police. It's like 40% of them have admitted to being domestic abusers. And do they ever face consequences? Fucking no. So many women I know, including myself, have had horrific experiences with violent white men. And instead of actually receiving any kind of justice, the system just slaps them on the wrist and says, don't do that again. Meanwhile, it's out here vilifying things like poverty, addiction, and black people and other people of color, instead of dealing with the rampant amount of violent white men who are out here committing crime after crime against women and other marginalized communities. But because those crimes are being committed against marginalized communities and not against white men, the white men aren't held to the same standard, the standard that black folks and other people of color are held to for criminality. It is not a justice system. It is a legal system.
System malfunction. System malfunction.
What is happening, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel, Download Malfunction. If this is your first time here, this is a spot where we cover all the madness and the dysfunction that takes place in society today. But more importantly, I wanted to thank you for stopping by. It's really appreciated. So if you can subscribe to the channel and hit that like button and leave a comment down in the comments section, because honestly speaking, in a major way, this is like a therapeutic session for me, because I get to read the comments and see who's aligned and who isn't, and learn from their perspectives as well. So again, thank you very much for stopping by. Now, to not waste any time, I came across this lady the other day while scrubbing through TikToksic, and I found her post extremely interesting because of her perspective as it relates to the criminal justice system. In her argument, she says that we should not be calling it the justice system and just call it the legal system, because she believes that it really doesn't provide any justice for us unless you're an extremely powerful or wealthy white man. I must say, I completely agree with her argument. And not only that, I don't know how old this lady is, but just by my visual inspection, I would say she's probably in her mid-40s, probably pushing 50. Sadly, the vast majority of marginalized communities know this already. I knew this by the time I was about 10 years old. I saw how the community was policed. I saw who was going to jail and who wasn't going to jail. And now that I'm an adult, I don't know about you guys, but you can see all across the news, a lot of these people who find themselves wrapped up or entangled in the criminal justice system, depending on who you are, determines the outcome of your punishment. And just to give a couple examples, there's a couple of cases that stick out at the top of my head in recent years. I'm sure you guys remember Brock Turner. He was a Stanford college student who was accused of graping a girl behind a Dipsy dumpster. And his father, who had a whole lot of money, very powerful man and extremely wealthy, came to court and pled his case to the judge, saying that if his son had to go to prison, that would ruin his life because he had a promising career in front of him. I think Brock Turner only ended up spending about 3 months in jail before he was released.
Yet another high-profile campus sexual assault. A former Stanford swimmer convicted of 3 felonies after attacking an unconscious young woman. But it was his 6-month sentence that provoked national outrage. Now, after serving just half his jail term, he's free. Here's ABC's Matt Gutman with the fallout.
It may have been a short jail sentence, but Brock Turner's walk to freedom seemed long, opening the jailhouse door today with a bang. The former Stanford swimmer hustling through the gauntlet of reporters hurling questions at him.
Brock, are you finally willing to apologize? Do you wish you had a longer sentence? Brock, do you wish you had a longer sentence?
Then whisked away in this car. He'd served just 90 days of a 6-month jail sentence. But look closely, he's not leaving jail empty-handed.
You mentioned hate mail. What kind of volume are we talking about?
At large amounts of mail. Large amounts.
I'm willing to apologize.
What are you going to do with the mail once he leaves jail?
Release it to him.
Turner is now out of this jail cell. His time behind bars is ending. But for the survivor of the assault, a new fear is just beginning.
Every time she sees a tall, blonde man with short hair from behind, she's going to be fearful that that's him, no matter how unlikely or improbable that is. That is a part of life.
In March, Turner pleaded not guilty to sexually assaulting Emily Doe, who was passed out drunk behind a dumpster after a party on the Stanford University campus. It was right there on that January night in 2015 that graduate students Carl Friedrich Arndt and Peter Johnson stopped when they saw two people on the ground.
She wasn't moving.
And the man on top of her was?
Yeah. Or my friend said, what are you doing? But he later said, I didn't do anything, etc. when he was lying down on the ground, for example. And it tried to seem like nothing happened, essentially.
According to Arndt, when Turner made a run for it, he and Johnson ran after him, pinning him to the ground.
Then I was over there, helped him to restrain him until the police came.
When you saw her lying there on the ground, was it pretty obvious what had happened?
Yeah. I mean, she was half naked, so yeah.
Soon after police arresting Turner, they took these images of him, showing the abrasions on his face, his hands, and his torn flannel shirt. In an initial interrogation, he told police he'd been drunk but functional. We watched that interrogation video, and not once is Brock Turner emotional. Now, in it, he says, quote, "My intention was not to try to rape a girl without consent. I was trying to hook up with the girl." And he says they were intimate, but he never did get her name. For his victim, this was no hookup. From the letter she read in court, Emily Doe recounts, "My breast had been groped, fingers had been jabbed inside me, along with pine needles and debris. My bare skin and head had been rubbing against the ground behind a dumpster." Brock Turner was convicted of sexual assault. He was sentenced in June. He faced 14 years in prison. The prosecution asked for 6 years. He received only 6 months and served half that time. The judge assigned his case, Aaron Persky, saying he feared the severe impact a prison term would have on the star college swimmer.
What was this judge thinking?
Is what's happening to Judge Persky a witch hunt?
Yes, 100% witch hunt, because what is being spread about him is actually absolutely factually and legally incorrect. Who isn't against sexual assault? It's like being against puppies and rainbows. I mean,
System malfunction.
Think about that same situation where a black man was at a college party and he decided to grape some girl behind a Dipsy dumpster and only got 3 months. I'm gonna tell you right now, they would have found an old school guillotine for this guy. As a matter of fact, remember Michael Vick? This guy didn't hurt anybody. He was fighting dogs and ended up spending a few years in prison.
Waiting for his return. The disgraced NFL star suffered one of the most astonishing falls in sports history when he was sentenced to 23 months in prison for operating a dogfighting ring 2 years ago. Vick hopes to return to the National Football League, but still has to serve 2 months of home confinement. He was a star quarterback with the Atlanta Falcons, and the team's owner says Vick deserves a second chance, but that it won't be with Atlanta. People for the ethical treatment of animals disagree, saying Vick doesn't deserve that chance.
System malfunction.
There's also another case. I think the young boy's name was Ethan Couch or something like that. And he was a young kid. He was under 20 years old. One night there was a party at his really extravagant house with a bunch of other younger kids, and he was heavy on the sauce. I think he was drinking whiskey and decided to go to the liquor store to pick up some more alcohol and end up getting into a car wreck. And the result was that 4 people ended up losing their lives because of his negligence. And the judge ended up giving him an extremely light sentence. And his attorney argued this idea of affluenza, saying that he was born under such wealthy conditions that he really didn't know right from wrong. Basically, that all he ever knew was privilege, so he should be given a pass on what he did to those folks and their families. He shouldn't be charged with such a serious crime because he had no understanding of responsibility, so it was unfair to him.
10 years ago Thursday, Ethan Couch killed 4 people and injured several others in a drunk driving crash in Burleson. Couch was 16, crashing into a group of people who were helping 24-year-old Brianna Mitchell, who had broken down on the side of the road. Mitchell, Holly Boyles, her daughter Shelby Boyles, and youth pastor Brian Jennings all died. A passenger in Couch's truck paralyzed from the neck down. Investigators determined Couch's BAC was .24, 3 times the legal limit in Texas, that he had stolen beer from Walmart and was hosting a party just before the crash.
We were looking for 20 years.
Couch pleaded guilty to 4 counts of intoxication manslaughter and 2 counts of intoxication assault. All that was left to decide was sentencing. And things took a massive turn when Couch's defense pushed for leniency, claiming the teen suffered from affluenza. Simply put, Couch's attorneys argued that the teen had no moral compass, not knowing what was right from wrong due to his affluent upbringing.
I'm pretty sure there might even have been a chuckle in the back of the courtroom because it was just absurd.
Alpert didn't think the presiding judge, Honorable Gene Boyd, would entertain such a defense. Couch declined to have a jury decide his fate.
It's an insult to people that have resources and money, and it's an insult to people that don't, implying that there should be a double standard there.
Yet in December of 2013, an ask for 20 years of incarceration turned into just 10 years of probation.
The air was just sucked out of that room. All we could do is just be patient and wait and see if what I predicted was going to happen would happen.
And it did.
And it did.
Almost 2 years after the sentencing, Couch was seen around alcohol at a party playing beer pong, an apparent violation of his probation conditions.
There was a part of me that thought, well, I didn't think it was going to happen this quickly. But yeah, I told you so.
The next chapter, no one expected. When Couch's probation officer tried to get to the bottom of what happened, he and his mother, Tanya, had disappeared. No sign of the pair for over 2 weeks until they were caught near Puerto Vallarta, Mexico.
System malfunction.
And just like Brock Turner, or whatever his name is, this kid basically served no time in jail, so he was able to walk free after deleting 4 people because of his negligence. And what do you know? Just a few months later, even though he was mandated to not have any alcohol in his presence or be drinking, someone leaked the recording on social media and he was found drinking alcohol again. So him and his mother decided to flee to Mexico so that he didn't have to face any punishment. So what I'm saying is that I agree with her argument. It's also alarming to me that a lady that is 40 plus, maybe pushing 50 years old, is just coming to the realization of this. But I also think that this emphasizes a bigger story here, which is that there is 2 different experiences and perspectives when dealing with the criminal justice system. Yeah, she's come to the realization now, but I guarantee you, if you were to put some other people in front of that camera and ask them that question, who come from these communities, once again, who have to deal with the police on a regular basis in a very, very high energy negative capacity, they would tell you something completely different. And even if you were to sit some teenagers up there and ask them that same question, which is how they feel about the criminal justice system, they would tell you that it's unfair and that it's completely against them. You can ask anybody in any one of these economically deprived communities what they think about the criminal justice system. There's people out there that are charged with petty misdemeanors and find themselves in jails for months or even years, and I think it's solely due to who they are or who they are not. I mean, we have boatloads of evidence surrounding this. All you got to do is look at the criminal justice records or those who are in jail and look at the crimes in which they are charged with, in contrast to the level of sentencing that they received. Another comparison that can be made is, where do the police police? Oftentimes it's right on the border or in between marginalized communities and very wealthy communities. It's almost like the police create a wall between these two people for the purposes of protecting the wealthy communities. The vast majority of the time, the police are going into these marginalized communities and looking for stuff, harassing people, pulling them over for no reason, giving them tickets for no reason. But that same policing structure is not taking place in the wealthy communities. The police are not going into these wealthy communities and shaking down homes and talking to people like they're less than human, because they don't know that if they pulled someone over in the wealthy community, that there could be a good chance that those people may have ties to judges, lawyers, mothers or fathers who are extremely powerful, which would put that type of policing under a different microscope, and there are some questions that need to be answered. They can go over to marginalized communities or economically deprived communities because these people have no power. What are you gonna do? Who are you going to call to come and help you? Who understands the criminal justice system to be able to share with you that the way we are policing your community is wrong? So just shut your mouth, sit on that curb, and you're gonna follow my orders, whether you like it or not. And if you don't do just as I tell you to, then we're gonna go ahead and dust you off, and you're still not gonna be able to do nothing. So, like I said, most people in these communities who have to deal with the police and this type of attitude on a regular basis understand what it is. There is no justice. It's just us.
System malfunction.